Coming from CNN, White House point man at Homeland Security shared martial law option post to keep Trump in office. Now it's time to show your work, class. What did we learn from South Korea? How do we handle the threat or the realization of martial law? Show of hands, show of hands. Who paid attention? The Trump administration's new point man for dealings with the Department of Homeland Security is a former far-right podcast host and election denier who once shared an article calling for martial law to keep Donald Trump in office following his loss in the 2020 election. Paul Ingracia and the Twitter account for a podcast he co-hosted posted the remark and similar sentiments on social media in December 2020 and January 2021, according to a CNN K-File review of deleted and still active posts by Ingracia himself and the account of the podcast. The 29-year-old Ivy League educated lawyer, Ivy League attended attorney, now serves as the second Trump administration's White House liaison to the DHS, a key role that has historically involved managing the administration's relationship with the department and overseeing the placement of political appointees. Since assuming the White House role, Ingracia was present for the release of prisoners convicted of crimes for the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, and according to the New York Times, had an office near Attorney General Pam Bondi while he was briefly at the Justice Department. So that means he got to watch them get rearrested because they're criminals. CNN reached out to Ingracia, his podcast co-host, the White House, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Homeland Security for comment, but did not receive a response. You won't. The response will come from one of the approved journalists that they will give a statement through. On Monday, ABC News reported that Ingracia was pushed out of the Justice Department as liaison following clashes between him and the Chief of Staff over pushing to hire candidates with exceptional loyalty to the president. I thought that's what they wanted. Well, the Chief of Staff, she don't really want that. She don't. But yeah. CNN confirmed that Ingracia is no longer at the Justice Department, and his LinkedIn profile now lists him at Homeland Security. Yay us. Ingracia graduated from Cornell Law School in 2022, and during the 2024 Republican presidential primary published a discredited theory that candidate Nikki Haley was not a natural-born citizen and not eligible to be president. That's who you focused on, not Rafael Cruz Jr.? The claim was later boosted by Trump on Truth Social. Ingracia later called Haley an insufferable bitch in a recently deleted January 2024 tweet. But Trump had her as ambassador. You know what? Don't nothing make sense. We're in the upside down. Prior to his role in government, his comments on Twitter, now known as X, and the Right on Point podcast he co-hosted with his sister echoed some of the most extreme election denial rhetoric of the time. Yo, sister, that's the best you could do? Okay. The podcast Twitter account, which Ingracia linked to episode descriptions, his Twitter, and a Parler account he made in December 2020, he sent tweets in December 2020 calling for secession if court cases meant to keep Trump in office failed, and numerous tweets calling to support martial law. Time for @Real Donald Trump to declare martial law and secure his re-election. It's the only way, the podcast account posted in December 2020 in a since deleted tweet. In the days leading up to the Capitol riot, Ingracia publicly mocked conservatives who opposed violent measures to keep Trump in power. But I thought it was Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and the FBI that did it. Can y'all come together with one narrative? And you might want to tell the new 1-2 punch of the FBI what this narrative is that you're running with, especially if you over in Homeland Security. Like, the fuck? The podcast account also posted a quote from President John F. Kennedy the night of the January 6, 2021 reading. "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." But we marginalized are always screaming victimhood. Okay, gotcha. In one post from January 2nd, 2021, Ingracia called right-wing commentator Seb Gorka soft after Gorka rebuked a post that called for then Vice President Mike Pence to be arrested and executed by firing squad for not supporting attempts to overturn the 2020 election. But I thought it was those of us that were majestically melanated that were the savages, and we needed Euro-Americans, the whiteness, the complexion for protection to come and bring us civility and culture. But y'all always trying to somebody. But Ingracia and the podcast have embraced rhetoric branding fellow Republicans as traitors. Also, if you're not racist and violent, you're a traitor. But I thought we were a cultured civilization. Thought we were highbrow. I guess not. No more spots of tea for you. Ingracia's tweets have likened Pence to Brutus and Judas, saying he belongs in the ninth circle of hell. He has reportedly called for expelling traitors from the GOP. Et tu, Brute? The Right on Point podcast social media similarly demanded purges of so-called traitors from the Republican Party, including then Attorney General Bill Barr in December 2020, whom the podcast labeled a Bush-affiliated neocon of the Washington swamp, and whom Ingracia has also labeled as a traitor and disparaged as being part of the Washington, D.C. swamp. Y'all do have the option of just creating your own shit. You don't have to keep rebranding and repurposing everything. Everything doesn't need to be a reboot. For days after the Gorka tweet, Ingracia shared a blog post from his podcast that argued for the martial law option to keep Trump in power, urging him to use emergency powers to delay Joe Biden's inauguration. The post claimed Trump had a moral imperative to ensure election security and called for a military-run re-vote in key battleground states where he had challenged the results. It is amazing, isn't it, how they will openly, in our face, very publicly, on the forever web, call for the weaponization of the federal government with no evidence, no nothing, just trust me, bro. But when somebody is put into the judicial system for just cause with a mountain, a plethora of evidence, then it's a two-tier justice system. They're weaponizing it against us. Like, you're never going to beat the allegations that you know full well what white privilege is, and you take advantage of it, and you're just tap dancing in our faces. The blog post was signed by the pseudonym Lucius Quinticus Cincinnatus, an early Roman Republic statesman whom Ingracia has referenced publicly in tweets and blog posts. Not you trying to name yourself after Cincinnati, but you know what? The blog post also contained other references to ancient Rome, including a picture of a statue of the first Roman emperor, Augustus, that Ingracia later shared in a 2023 tweet, and images of the assassination of Julius Caesar by Brutus, the latter of whom Ingracia has publicly compared to former Vice President Mike Pence. So you think Trump is Gaius Julius Caesar? And Mike Pence is Brute. Whew, the wet dream fantasies y'all have regarding ancient times. That you didn't study the shit. Okay. To that end, a martial law orchestrated revoke in at least the 4 defendant states in the quashed Texas lawsuit, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, is needed, the post read. The blog post also suggested the president should use his emergency powers to postpone Inauguration Day until a special counsel concludes an investigation into election fraud. Like, you do realize the Department of Justice is supposed to be nonpartisan. Guess not. The proposal is unconstitutional. The 20th Amendment of the Constitution asserts that the new term of each elected president begins at noon on January 20th of the year following the election. In the weeks after the election, Ingracia's podcast changed its name on X from Right on Point to Stop the Steal HQ and began selling signs for what it said was Trump's legal defense. Everybody was grifting big time. Oh, they were money fast time. Trump repeatedly reposted articles Ingracia wrote for the far-right conspiracy website Gateway Pundit on his Truth Social page. Ingracia himself declares in his social media bio that he is President Trump's favorite writer. I mean, that's Adolf, the former artist, an oddball eugenist. But, I guess you like it, somebody love it. Not me though, but somebody, I guess.